Overall, I can see myself doing this more often. What's up, everybody? Today I wanted to talk about my day trip out into Boston. A new one this time. One that was a little different because I'm trying out a new movie theater because the one I used to work at and the one that I can see the instant gratification job from, that's all I'm going to say about it. I feel like I need more distance from that location. Nothing personal, just I needed a change of scenery, and I think downtown Boston might be the place to do that. But before I get into my adventure going there, going to the Boston Common for a bit, seeing F1 in IMAX, because that was something I could not do at the other location. Don't forget to give this video a like, comment what you think about all this, whether you think I'm overreacting to being able to see the instant gratification job from the other movie theater that is admittedly way closer to me, but they don't have an IMAX theater or a actual park to go for a walk in while I wait. Be sure to subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations, or soon to be a couple times a week. I'm scaling it down at the end of at the start of the next month. But be sure to subscribe for those videos all the same. And last but not least, feel free to join me at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord to keep the conversation going. Link will be in the description below. Well, getting back on topic, let's start from the beginning. So, last week, I saw that F1 was playing in IMAX. It's back in theaters. That's the Formula One racing movie with Brad Pitt. Really liked it when I saw it in the premium format of the other location last July. It ended up being the last movie I went to see for a while until Movie Scout was able to confirm that the Fantastic Four First Steps was actually pretty good. And then Movie Scout told me how AMC Stubs A-List is a pretty good deal, and it has me rethinking the Saturday movie charter. I'm going to throw up the current one there so you can see what my rules are for my Saturday movies. Alright, I think you've had a good enough chance to read that one. Here's the amended one. Yeah, I'm thinking of turning Saturday into a day where I go out to the AMC at the Boston Common by train, first show of the day, and then that's my Saturday movie, and after that I can either go home or I have the option to do something else in Boston if I oh so choose. I didn't do much else yesterday as I record this on Wednesday, but here's what I did. So, after my workout and getting and taking my shower and such, I walked down to the train station Funny story, there was actually a guy who I suspected was also headed there because of the backpack with the logo of what looked like a tech company of some kind on the back of it. We walked on the same sidewalk for a while and then arrived at the train station. He arrived for the same train I was there for. I was like, I told him like, I had a feeling you were headed to catch this train. The backpack. He had a good laugh, but I left him alone after that. Anyway, we got on the train. They scanned the tickets, and it was a bit slower going into South Station than it was last time, despite the fact that they still went straight from the next stop to South Station. I think it was because of the Amtrak infrastructure repairs that they mentioned, so there's that. Anyway, I took the train all the way to South Station and I realized I forgot my protein bar. I guess between doing the workout, because I'll do a separate video about the prolonged conversation about consistency with working out that I had with that one guy on my, what was it? I'm done with cooking at home video. Because tying this back to living at home, my mom also ended up working from home, and I was kind of glad that I decided to go that day because I knew I would have to hear her on her work calls. So I decided, well, I had already decided to go regardless of that. It just so happened that she ended up working from home, and I was like, hey, this ended up working out for me. Now I can get the space that I need. But anyway, getting back to the story. So I got to South Station, I got out, and I decided to go to Regina Pizzeria because if you watched my video about not cooking at home anymore, you'll know that I'm planning to not keep pizza around the house anymore, or at least for longer than a day, because honestly, I do need to eat healthier with something like rice and vegetables. But whatever. I had my fix with Regina Pizzeria. It was good. I actually sat down next to this woman who was eating something she had brought from home. I was just like, is this seat taken? Because in South Station, basically, all the possible eating tables were filled. She indicated that it was not taken, and so I took that seat and had my pizza. I observed all the goings on of South Station, including how pigeons just randomly flew in and out, which I suspect that the health code doesn't have a problem with it on the grounds that it's such a huge place that it doesn't really matter compared to if it were, say, let's just say if it was the McDonald's on the same street as the AMC at the Boston Common, it would be a much different story if a pigeon flew in. But yeah, I made a couple of remarks about the pigeons to the woman who was sitting across from me. And then I got up after I finished my pizza and my Coke, and I was on my merry way. The first thing I did before I went over to the Boston Common was I actually scouted out the bus terminal, meaning I just walked down the street to see where the bus terminal was personally, because I decided to make note of it for future reference, because now I know that I have an option for how to get to upstate New York to visit my family over there if I ever choose, or I get invited to something, but neither of my parents are able to drive. There's that. It was I decided to just take a look, see where it was, and then get back on the road to the Boston Common. I had my watch give me the same directions, or directions to the Boston Common this time instead of Saunders Castle, because it's honestly a pretty straight line from South Station to an entrance to the Boston Common. Anyway, I followed the directions. I took a wrong turn briefly, but then I realized my mistake and got back on track because I didn't recognize the scenery that time. And I recognized part of my route from last time. And so I decided I am going to have to memorize this way eventually if I'm going to do this long term, meaning pretty much every Saturday unless I'm violently ill or there is literally nothing worth seeing there. Well, after that, I eventually got to the common, and then I started a outdoor walk, and I just wandered around the common because I had about 40 or so minutes before I decided to go into the theater. I walked through the different areas. This Freedom Trails guy stopped me because I was wearing my "Trust Me, I'm a Movie Critic" t-shirt and asked if I reviewed other things. I told him I just do movies and TV. And he still gave me this 20% off for a night tour. It's a thing they do on Fridays and Saturdays, where the Freedom Trail does night tours for spooky things, I guess. I don't remember all too much. I could probably see more if I pull out the QR code and check it out. But anyway, that was an interesting experience, and I kept going. I noted where there was a water bottle refill station next to a visitor center, which also had bathrooms. Again, I was noting all of this for future reference so that I knew where to go if I decide to do this long term, because there's one thing that is kind of holding me back from doing this long term that I'll get to in a bit. Well, after all that, I eventually decided to go into the theater. I went and scanned my ticket, and I found out I had to go upstairs to get my popcorn and water bottle, and then back downstairs to get to the IMAX theater. So I got my popcorn and my water bottle, but I realized I still had to use the bathroom. I probably should have done that before I went into the concession stand. Well, eventually, because the escalator was broken, the down escalator that is, I had to either go to these stairs or an elevator that I felt weird going to because it looked like something that was more out of the way, like a employees only area, but I had it verified that it wasn't. But still, eventually, I went with a couple of managers and a guy from AMC home office who were taking the elevator, and I basically joined them. They were really cool about it. And I confirmed that I could go down that way on my own for future reference. And I suspect that's probably where people in wheelchairs need to go if they have a ticket for theaters 3 through 16. For context, theaters 3 through 16 are all upstairs, and theaters 1 and 2, one being a regular theater and the other being the IMAX theater, are basically down the hall past the ticket buying kiosks. Well, I had a nice little chat telling the managers and home office guy about how my trip there was essentially an experiment to see if I could do this long term because of everything I talked about earlier with. I didn't tell him about feeling trapped in living at home, which again, I'm grateful that I have somewhere rent free that I can call home, but also I won't deny that I feel a little crowded, and that's part of the reason that I'm in my getting out of the house more often character arc. But I did talk to them about how I could see the instant gratification job from the other place. They said they were glad to have me, and they eventually, and they led me right to the IMAX theater. So I set down my popcorn and water bottle in my seat so that I could go to the bathroom. And something I noticed about all the seats was they were I think they were exactly the same seats as the IMAX theater at the other chain's other location that has an IMAX theater. Because one of the managers or the home office guy told me that IMAX doesn't allow them to take out seats or do anything like that. So I have a feeling that IMAX, the company IMAX, has standards for how many seats and what kind of seats they have, probably to ensure a consistent experience. But all the same, I enjoyed the pre-roll stuff when I got back because unlike my aunt in upstate New York who really hates the previews, I actually enjoy them to a certain extent because I like to get an idea of movies I'd like to see in the future. I also realized from my experience with Mission Impossible 8 and seeing that large group of people just barge in well into the movie itself that this guy, the previews and such ought to exist for the sake of giving people a buffer time in case they run late. So maybe 2:15 is the showtime that AMC advertised for F1, but the actual movie itself started a full half hour after that because of previews and such, which again, I'm not complaining, and I think it's a great buffer to give people time to get their snacks if they want to, or if there's traffic. So it tells people to plan for 2:15, but it really starts at 2:45. So if the train had stopped for much longer, or I'd had to change trains for whatever reason, I would have had that error margin. Thankfully, I'm really good about planning, and what I learned from the train ride was to go 2 to 3 trains before the last possible one that would be technically possible, assuming literally nothing goes wrong. But I digress. So, I watched the movie. I'll admit, I got a couple things about it. One, every time I saw Javier Bardem, I could just see him as the Zelda movie Ganondorf. If anyone from Nintendo is watching this, please cast Javier Bardem as Ganondorf for the Zelda movie, or at least have him audition. And if you decide he's not a good fit, I'll trust your judgment on that, but I think he'd be a good fit. But aside from that, getting back to the whole mission of the experiment, I looked around at the other people to some extent just to see what kind of crowd I could be expected to deal with. Obviously, a Tuesday afternoon, not as crowded, but it was still a decently sized crowd compared to when I went to the Fantastic Four First Steps or any of the other Tuesday shows I went to this year. But yeah, while I was sitting there, I was also observing how I didn't have any strangers sitting next to me this time around. But in the future, who knows if there'd be someone with a beverage and they'd be using the cup holders on either side of me. See, the real reason that I like to get to the movie early, or at least now, is to assert my cup holder. Honestly, I might actually buy a soda and a water bottle so that I can assert both cup holders on either side of me as mine, at least for the time being. Obviously, if someone asks for me to move one of them, fine, I'll move the water bottle. But since they don't have tables in there like they do at the other location, I'm sorry. I still need at least one, and this is the one I'm keeping. Although hopefully I can just put the two drinks into the cup holders and then they won't bother me about it. Yeah, that's a pretty good solution because my alternative was I thought about using the A-List tickets to get three, if not four seats all to myself, like just reserve a block of them every Saturday, and then if my friends are able to come, cool. If they don't, oh well, I've still got space to myself. Unfortunately, the usher who scanned my ticket when I arrived told me that he suspected it was more likely that it was one Stubs A-List ticket per showtime. I couldn't use, say, two on that 2:15 show of F1. I'm only using that as a hypothetical, as an example, because that's the time I went to. So, and Movie Scout confirmed that over Instagram DMs while I was on the train home, which got delayed, and my mom confirmed that is pretty normal for rush hour, so hopefully that's not the case on weekends, because that's when I'd go to save on transportation, because $10 for unlimited commuter rail usage over the weekend compared to $14 both ways. $14 total, meaning $7 there, $7 back. Not as good of a deal. But anyway, I was torn between just getting dinner at the McDonald's at South Station or just waiting. I just waited. My train eventually arrived, and then I was able to take the train home on the ticket that I had bought. And then when I got off the train, I was able to walk home and make a sandwich for dinner. Yeah, something that made the train ride a little bearable is I took a page out of Glenn Powell's character's book. His name is Ben. Ben from Anyone But You, by listening to a song of my choice. If you've seen Anyone But You, or if you haven't seen Anyone But You, for context, his flight song to keep him grounded or to ward off the anxiety of flying was Unspoken, I think it is. Yeah, hold on. But anyway, I listened to the Overworld Adventure song from the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. So that's the music that's playing when you're riding the train. For those of you who haven't played the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, the central mode of transportation is a train that you use to go from one place to another in the overworld. Alright. I know I have it. Yeah, Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield. So yeah, after I got home and made my sandwich, that was the end of my adventure. Or you could call it my experiment of actually going there and seeing a movie in its entirety and not bailing early like I did for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Oh my god, I should have asked them if I could use an A-List ticket for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Next time. Because there will be a next time, because I want to test out the Dolby Cinema Theater before I commit to changing the Saturday movie charter. So yeah, that was my experiment adventure. Overall, I can see myself doing this more often. I just need to assert my cup holder territory if the situation is similar in the regular format or Dolby Cinema theaters, or assuming all of them are like the auditorium where the Rocky Horror Picture Show was. I would also I also need to figure out more of the free activities that Brock listed out when I asked for suggestions. But yeah, overall, I think this is going to be a great way to get out of the house as part of my get out of the house as often as possible character arc to feel less trapped. And I don't necessarily have to use and I can actually use the unlimited weekend pass to go to other places after that movie. But again, it's all hypothetical right now. I'm just going to wrap it up here for the video because I think I made my point. You let me know in the comments down below what you think about all of this. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary and rants from a man caught between generations. And feel free to join me at the Zillennial Nexus Point Discord. Link will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.